Hello students, how are you all? I hope you all are fit and fine and doing very well with your family members and you all are safe. So here today in this chapter of English subject of standard 6th, we are going to learn about chapter number 9 and that is Bertie and the Lion Cub. So here we are having two main characters of this chapter. Number one is Bertie, the boy, who basically is the hero of the chapter, and the chapter's second lead is the lion cub, the white lion cub. So now let's go and see what is there to see and learn in this chapter. And let's see how Bertie the boy meets the lion cub and how the story begins and what happened when these two happens to meet together and how they carry on with their lives. So the story starts with one morning. Bertie was woken by a chorus of urgent neighing. He jumped out of his bed and ran to the window. A herd of zebras were scattering away from the waterhole, chased by a couple of hyenas. Then he saw more hyenas, 3 of them, standing stock still, noses pointing, eyes fixed at the waterhole. It was only now that Bertie saw the lion cub. But this one wasn't white at all. He was covered in mud, with his back to the waterhole, and he was waving a pathetic paw at the hyenas who were beginning to circle. The lion cub had nowhere to run to, and the hyenas were sidling ever closer. So in this first paragraph, we read that there is a one good morning when Bertie just woken up by the sounds, the chorus of urgent neighing, the sounds of animals. And when he jumped out of his bed and when he ran to the window to look at what's happening outside the window, he saw a herd of zebras were scattering away from the waterhole. That means they were running away from the waterhole and chased by a couple of hyenas. And when he saw there were more hyenas, there were 3 of them. Their nose was pointing and the eyes was fixed at the waterhole. So when he looked at the waterhole, he came to know that there was a lion cub, and he wasn't white at all, because the lion cub was covered in mud and his back was to the waterhole, and he was waving a pathetic paw to the hyenas in his defense, who were beginning to circle that small little lion cub. And the lion cub had nowhere to run to, and the hyenas were coming closer and closer to that little baby lion. So, when he saw what was happening and what was going to happen with that little lion cub, Bertie was downstairs in a flash, leaping off the veranda and rushing barefoot across the compound, shouting at the top of his voice. He threw open the gate and charged down the hill towards the waterhole, yelling and screaming and waving his arm like a wild thing. Startled at the sudden intrusion, the hyenas turned tail and ran, but not far. Once within range, Birdie hurled at both sides of pebbles at them. So when he came to know that the lion cub is in danger because of the hyenas, he ran downstairs in a flash, leaping off the veranda and racing barefoot. He was not wearing anything. His feet were bare. And he crossed the compound, shouting at the top of his voice. And he threw open the gate and charged down the hill towards the waterhole. Now he started yelling, screaming, and waving his arms like a wild thing, like jungly. And because of that act, hyenas were startled. They stared out like, what is happening? And they turned the tail. Turning the tail means turn away in fright. They were scared because of what Bertie was doing. But not so far. Once within range, Bertie hurled a broadside of pebbles at them. So now you can look at this picture how Bertie is coming downhill and hyena is coming a bit closer and closer to that mud-matted lion cub. And here is a waterhole where all this scene is happening. And they ran off again, but again not far. Then he was at the waterhole and between the lion cub and the hyenas, shouting at them to go away. So within a second or a moment, now Bertie came down to the hill and he was between the hyena and the lion cub. And he was shouting very hard to the hyenas to go away from the lion cub. They didn't. They stood and watched, uncertain for a while. Then they began to circle again, closer, closer. So here Bertie is trying very hard to chase hyenas away, but hyenas are not going much far. They are just standing at the far and they are watching what's happening, and within a moment they started to coming closer and closer to Bertie and the lion cub. That was when the shot rang out. Tishkow! Shoo! The hyenas bolted into the long grass and were gone. When Bertie turned around, he saw his mother in her nightgown, rifle in hand, running towards him down the hill. He had never seen her run before. Between them, they gathered up the mud-matted cub and brought him home. He was too weak to struggle, though he tried. As soon as they had given him some warm milk, they dunked him in the bath to wash him. As the first of the mud came off, Bertie saw he was white underneath. Now there was a sound of rifle, tishkow, shoo, and because of the sound, the hyenas bolted. Bolted means run away suddenly into the long grasses, and now they were completely gone and they were not going to come back. When Bertie turned around to look like what's happening, what happened, where is the sound coming from, he saw his mother in the nightgown with rifle in her hand, running towards him down the hill. And before this moment, he never saw his mother being like this running, and he was he was in a big surprise too. Now, between them, they gathered up. Itne mein, what happened? They gathered up the mud-mutted cub. The cub here, see, look, how the cub is muttered in the mud. They picked up the little lion cub and they brought him to the home. He was very weak to struggle. Whenever you pick up a strange, unknown baby of human or any other animal, they will try to struggle that please don't pick me up, let me be doing what am I doing. So here, same way the lion cub also tried to struggle, but he was too weak to struggle. But though he tried, but as soon as he had given up, like he was too tired and he was like, okay, take me wherever you are taking me to. So as soon as they had given him some warm milk, because he was too weak and he needed something to eat, and he was a baby, a lion cub, so they gave him some warm milk to drink. And then they dunked him in a bathtub so they can wash him properly and take off all the murds from him. So first, when the mud started to come off, Bertie saw that he was a white lion underneath. You see, he cried triumphantly. He's a white. He is. I told you, didn't I? He is my white lion. His mother still couldn't bring herself to believe it. 5 baths later, she had to. So right now, Bertie is very excited of the color and he is yelling at the top of his lungs like, Mummy, I told you, he is a white lion. He is my white lion. He's my white lion. But Mama was like, she could not still bring herself to believe it that the lion is of white color. But after 5 baths later, she had to believe that the lion is white. They sat him down by the stove in a washing basket and fed him again all the milk he could drink, and he drank a lot. Then he lay down and slept. He was still asleep when Bertie's father got back at lunchtime. They told him how it had all happened. So now, Mama got to believe that the lion cub is of white color, and after 5 baths, they sat lion cub down by the stove in a washing basket and they again fed him some milk. But all the milk he could drink, but he was so hungry that he drank a lot. After that, he lay down and he fell asleep. He was still asleep when Bertie's father came back from the work at the lunchtime for lunch. And when he came, he got a surprise. Obviously, when getting a home and achanak suddenly you got to see a new thing in your house, you are going to be in a bit lot surprised. So the Bertie and the Bertie's mother told his father a whole story about the lion cub, that how Bertie get out from his bed and went down hills to just protect the lion cub, and how Mama at the nightgown she ran after him and got the shot and they all saved the little lion cub. So father is just listening and he's like, okay. And after that, Bertie said, please father, I want to keep him. Bertie said to his father, like, father please, because he really wants that lion cub to be with him at his home. So obviously any of your father or my father would not allow to keep a lion at our home as a pet. So Bertie is trying to convince his father, like, please father, please, I really want this lion cub. And after that, Mama said, and so do I, said his mother. We both do. And she spoke as Bertie had never heard her speak before, her voice strong, determined. So now Bertie is pleading and pleasing, like, please father, I really want this lion cub. And Mama just told, and so do I. We both do. And the way she spoke to her husband, Bertie have never have heard her speak like this before, because her voice was very strong and very determined, like, whatever happens, we really want this lion to be with us. Bertie's father didn't seem to know quite how to reply. So when the mama is having a very strong and determined voice that we really want this lion with us, so the father is also quite confused, like what to reply, what to answer. So he just said, we will talk about it later. Like every father does that when he's having no answer to give. At that time they say, like, बाद में बात करते हैं, we'll talk about this later. And then he walked out. But just saying like this, he went out. They did talk about it later when Bertie was supposed to be in bed. He wasn't, though. He heard them arguing. He was outside the sitting room door, watching, listening. His father was pacing up and down. So now, father just gave that statement, like, we will talk about this later. And when he came back at home at the night time, and that time they did talk about it, but at the time when Bertie was supposed to be in his bed, when Bertie was supposed to sleep. But out of excitement and curiosity, Bertie was not able to sleep at that time. So he was standing or like sitting outside the sitting room, whole room, and he was watching and listening his parents arguing about the lion cub. He will grow up, you know, he was saying. You cannot keep a grown lion, you know that. So father was giving his statement out of this debate, like, he will grow up, he's a lion, he'll grow up once, and then we cannot keep a grown lion. हम एक शेर को हमारे घर पे नहीं रख सकते, और ये तो जानती हो. And like that, he was arguing and keeping his point on the table in front of his wife. And you know, the mama is having always the strong point to argue. And she said, you know, we cannot just throw him to the hyenas, replied his mother. He needs us, and maybe we need him. He will be someone for Bertie to play with for a while. And then she added sadly, after all, it's not as if he's going to have any brothers and sisters, is it? So now Mama is always having a one Brahmastra, like the blackmailing point to blackmail our fathers. The same thing happens with Bertie's father too, because Mama is giving all the good points in front of him, like, we cannot just throw him, this little baby, in front of hyenas. If we will throw it to him right now, then he will be eaten by them. And he needs us. उसको हमारी ज़रूरत है. He needs us. And maybe we need him too. And हमें भी इसकी ज़रूरत उतनी ही है. He will be someone for Berties to play with for a while, because, and then she added, like, sadly, with all emotions Like, after all, it's not as if he's going to have any brothers or sisters, is it? Because Bertie was the only child of his parents. So somehow Bertie was a lonely boy. So he needs some companion to be with. And at that point, father said, "All right then." He said, "All right, you can keep your lion. ठीक है फिर, ठीक है, तुम अपना शेर रख सकते हो." So now everyone is happy because the lion cub is going to stay with them. So the white lion cub came to live amongst them in the farmhouse. He slept at the end of Bertie's bed. Wherever Bertie went, the lion cub went too. Even to the bathroom, they were never apart. He was Bertie who saw to feed milk 4 times a day. Until later on, when the lion cub leapt from a soup bowl. There was impala meat whenever he wanted it, and as if he grew fast, he wanted more and more of it. So now the white lion was allowed to stay with them and in their farmhouse together, and he always slept with him at the end of his bed, and they were never apart. Even the lion cub was stick to him to the bathroom too wherever he was going, and it was Bertie who used to feed him 4 times a day milk. But afterwards, when he lapped over the soup bowl, they started feeding him impala meat, and whenever he wanted, there was impala meat for him, and he started to grow fast, and he really grew fast. So now, for the first time in his life, Bertie was totally happy. The lion cub was all the brothers and sisters he could ever want, and all the friends he could ever need. The two of them would sit side by side on the sofa and watch the great red sun go down over Africa. And Bertie would read him Peter and the Wolf. And at the end, he would always promise him that he would never let him go off to a zoo and live behind bars like the wolf in the story. And the lion cub would look up at Bertie with his trusting amber eyes. So for the first time, Bertie was so happy and so excited, and he's having a very lively mood together with the lion cub. He was totally happy because the lion cub was all the brothers and sisters he could ever need, or all the friends he could ever need. And they two together sit side by side on the sofa, and in the evening, there was the great red sun go down over Africa. And at that time, Bertie would read him Peter and the Wolf, a story about Peter and the Wolf. And at the end of the story, he always promised him that he would never let him go off to a zoo and live behind the bars like the wolf in the story. And along with that statement, when Bertie was telling and promising to that white lion cub that was now a grown lion, he was always looked up at Bertie with all trusting amber eyes. What is amber eyes? Amber eyes is between brown and yellow in color. So the lion was having amber eyes because he trusted Bertie so much that he used to look at him in his eyes, and he was like, "Yes, buddy, I trust you." So right now, Mama said one day, "Why don't you give him a name?" His mother asked one day. His mother said, he's your pet, he's your buddy, why don't you give him a name? You should give him a good name to call out. So, what Bertie said? Because he doesn't need one, replied Bertie. He's a lion, not a person. Lions don't need name. Point to be noted here because he doesn't need one. He's a lion, he's not a person. And the lion, in lions, they don't call each other by names, so there is no need to give him a name. But his mother was always wonderfully patient with the lion. No matter how much mess he made, how many cushions he pounced on and ripped apart, no matter how much crockery he smashed, none of it seemed to upset her, and strangely, she was hardly ever ill these days. There was a spring to her step, and her laughter played around the house. His father was less happy about it. Lions, he muttered on, shouldn't live in houses. You should keep him outside in the compound. But they never did. For both mother and son, the lion had brought new life to their days, life and laughter. So here, as a lion is a lion, obviously, he has a different level of mass. So Bertie's mother was never upset or angry about how much mess he does with the house, how much cushion he has pounced and teared, and how much crockery at the home were smashed and broken by the white lion. She was always calm and patient, and she never complained about that. But the father, who was less happy about the lion, was now muttered like, lion should not live in our house. You should keep him outside in the compound. Like, you should let him out of the house. Like, why you are keeping him inside the house? But they never, Mama and Bertie never let him go outside. He was always with them, never been apart, and together Lion was happy and he made them happy, and they made each other's life full of life and laughter. And this was it about the story, Bertie and the Lion Cub. And the story is taken from an excerpt from The Butterfly Lion by Michael Morpurgo. So Michael Morpurgo is an author who was born in 1943. He is an English author, poet and playwright. He is best known for his novels like The Butterfly Lions, Private, Peaceful and the Wreck of the Zanzibar. He was the third British Children's Literate Laureate and held the title from 2003 to 2005. So it was a wonderful story about the Bertie and the Lion Cub, that how Bertie the boy saved a life of a cute little lion cub and how they got to live together with each other. So student, I hope you have enjoyed the story about the Bertie and the white lion cub, and you got to know how being kind, being brave is important. And thank you for watching the video. So meet you at the next video. Till then, be safe. Bye.